That was Blues in My Heart from the new album from John Németh called Blues Live. We have John Németh on the phone. John, how are you doing?
Good, Todd. How you doing,
I'm
man?
doing good. Now it's early out there in Oakland. It must be what we're recording here about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, so it's 10 o'clock in the morning there in Oakland.
Yeah, that's early for your average musician, but for
Well,
a musician
yeah,
that's got kids,
yeah.
that's not early.
Right, right. I was just going to say that's you're up early, but the musician's
Yeah.
life is different than it used to be. I think in that sometimes you're up and you're in the van at 7 o'clock or what on the plane, whatever. So
Oh, yeah, there's that. The band leader's always up early, but the side guys, they usually sleep in till like 10 minutes before it's time to go.
right, right, and then leave stuff at the hotel, right?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, garments, bags,
there you
and
go.
guitars, and yeah.
So tell me,
Typical.
you've got two new discs out. One is called Blues Live, and one is called Soul Live, and it looks, for all intents and purposes, like they were recorded on the same days, and you just sort of divided them into the the two types of music that you're most interested in. Is that an accurate kind of perception there? And
Yeah, that's correct. It's interesting. Uh, the main reason for doing that is because a lot of different programmers at radio stations and DJs, some of them like the blues that I do, and some of them like the soul that I do, and are more inclined to play songs off those particular different style of records. And I mean, in today's blues world, whereas the blues live CD is really what I consider, a bona fide blues record,
right,
and the soul live I consider, like a soul rock and roll kind of record. But in the eyes of a lot of folks that spin disc these days, that is blues to them too. So it's really interesting how the lines of the music has been meshed together.
well, I was going to say, I think that a lot of the classic soul stuff that I know you're into is now considered blues because soul music has
Yeah.
changed so drastically in the past 30 years. It's like if you have a drummer on it, it can't actually be soul music anymore. Or you know what I mean? If it has
Yeah,
actual, if it
yeah,
doesn't
yeah.
have, if it's not all computerized and so on like that, and so I think they've sort of lumped that into the they being. I don't know what that means. Well, who are they? But it just seems like a lot of stuff gets lumped into blues anymore, and there used to be a huge difference between the two. I mean, Muddy Waters and Percy Sledge that's two different approaches, or Otis Redding, but now they're both kind of considered blues. You think that's a good thing or a bad thing,
Um,
or
I
just a
think it's
thing?
probably not a good thing for blues, but a good thing for soul, because soul gets play on classic soul stations and play on blues stations as well.
Right, right,
But as a musician, uh, I mean, I definitely understand the difference, because it's a music thing. The blues chord progressions are blues chord progressions,
right.
and the scale that you stick with, is the blues scale for the most part on 90% of blues songs.
Mm-hmm.
Soul music, well, that leans, with the conveniences of country music and gospel as well, So the music is much more diverse, and that's probably why it's probably more popular, because the way the songs can be written in soul are just the same way that classic pop tunes are still written today. I mean, the original soul music is almost the format for pop music and rock music. Most of the British guys, in the '60s, like Rod Stewart and Paul Rogers and
Those guys
Lee
all,
Winwood and
yeah,
all
yeah,
those
right.
cats, they were all soul singers,
Absolutely, yes.
uh, and then they figured out a way to make it rock.
Yeah, yeah, and sell lots more records. Yeah,
Yeah, it's like Duck Dunn told the Blues Brothers that if they wanted to sell records, they had to put some soul on there. So there's the mix of soul music on blues records for quite some time. I mean, I even have a live record of Otis Rush back in the '60s, and shoot, he's playing all soul tunes. He's doing "Knock on Wood" and stuff like that. You know?
Well, and you've got people like Buddy Guy that do lots of soul tunes anymore, as well as rock and roll tunes. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
it's the lines are really kind of being blurred anymore. It seems to be to me that it seems to be more about the approach than the actual music itself anymore. You know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. You're absolutely correct. I mean, the fact that I didn't have horns on the Soul Live record makes it even more palatable to blues programming.
Mm-hmm. So now that you did this all yourself. This is on your own label now, right? Because you have been with a couple different labels, have you not?
Just mainly one label, Blind Pig Records, for the last 5 years.
Okay, all right. And you decided to do this you recorded all this yourself and so on like that?
Yeah. I bought some recording gear and basically kind of what it boiled down to was I had been touring so much and performing so many different places that I really didn't have the time to sit down and get into the studio to record a new CD, a studio CD.
Right.
And the fans have been wanting something new for quite a while, because it's been a couple of years since I released my last studio record. So February of this year came around, and I didn't have a new product, and I've got all this touring booked. So I'm like, oh boy, well, I better put something out, or else I'm going to get a whole lot of flack from the fans,
right?
And lose quite a bit of income too. So fans have been asking for a live CD for a long time. So I thought, shoot, you know what? I'll just record these few shows, and I know it'll come out good because the band's good. I wasn't too worried about that, so I recorded those few shows back in February, and they turned out great, even better than I thought they would ever turn out. Actually, with today's technology and recording, man, it's pretty amazing what you can do these days. So I recorded the shows, and I had enough material over the 3 shows to probably put out 4 CDs, but I figured that might be pushing it a little much.
Yeah. Well, I want to say that these 2 CDs are both terrific. I'm more partial to the Blues Live, but they're both really terrific. And we just played Blues in My Heart off of the Blues Live CD. Can you tell us a little bit about that particular song? Because that seems to be like a big production for you. That's like sort of a centerpiece for your live performances, isn't it?
I think, yeah, Blues in My Heart's one of those tunes that, you always get a standing ovation for.
You should.
And it's one of those, because it's just like, there's really not a whole lot of cats that can pull that style of vocals off anymore in blues, and it's quite a shock factor to people when they hear it. Plus, it's so quiet, it's so sparse, and that's my daughter in the background. She's going to be quite a singer too.
Yeah, that's why you're up this early. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and that song is highly influenced by like the way B.B. King and Buddy Guy and Freddie King would approach a slow blues, say back in the late 50s, early 60s.
So like around Live at the Regal for B.B. King, something like that?
Yeah, live at the Regal, and sort of like Buddy Guy's record of Man in the Blues.
Okay.
And
Freddie King, we mentioned Freddie King also?
Yeah, sort of like when Have You Ever Loved a Woman by Freddie King. That sort of falsetto of singing the blues, where you seamlessly move from falsetto to full voice all the time throughout the whole song, and it's just very, very, very dramatic, very dramatic, and it really hooks the listener right away and hooks them right into what you're trying to tell them.
Now, is that an approach that you've worked at over? Was this something that came to you early on in your singing? I don't know when you started singing, how old you were, or when you sort of got the bug for blues. So I'm wondering, if that's something that you just sort of discovered later on after you were singing for a while. I don't know if I don't know if you've always sung blues, or if you were in rock bands before that, or how you did that. But is it something?
Yeah, I've kind of always sung blues since I was 14. Really, when I started discovering that style of vocalization is when I got hired to fill in for Sam Myers when he became ill with throat cancer back in 2005, I believe it was.
Okay.
And he did quite a bit of B.B. King tunes, as a lot of folks did, because he was such a big hit maker. And I didn't want to do it exactly like the way Sam did it, and because Sam just kind of did it his way. And so I figured I'd try to pay a little homage to B.B. King when I did it, and noticed that, man, he did all this falsetto style of singing. So it wasn't any effort for me to do it. I could just do it. I think that's something that's been very, very, I've been very lucky with.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who can't do that, including B.B. King anymore.
Yeah, and it does go away, if
if you smoke.
If you smoke and you drink a lot. I mean, I think even B.B. King and Freddie King, they started using that falsetto less and less after a while.
Right.
But when you tour that many dates, and I do tour that many dates, and I think, it's amazing, how I can keep on doing it. But as time goes by, that falsetto gets a little raspier, as time goes by, especially when you're touring a lot. If I've got a couple weeks off, then it's right back to normal. But a buddy guy, he can still do it.
Yeah, he sure can.
He's a bad man. I mean, he's one of the scariest mother foyers out there. For sure,
absolutely.
In the blues today.
Absolutely. He's 76, and he's still out there. And last time I saw Buddy Guy, they had a curfew and they made him leave. They actually had to escort him off the stage. It wasn't like I'm going to give you an hour and then we're going to take off. It was like, no, I want to keep playing, and they had to actually like take the hook and pull him off the stage.
You're absolutely right, man. I opened a show for him at Davies Symphony Hall in San Francisco for 4,500 people, and just before he went on, they asked him if he wouldn't quit 20 minutes early. He said, 20 minutes early, the contract says I got to play all the way to this time. I'm going to play all the way to this time.
Right.
So,
yeah.
And he did.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's talk about
before he went out there and told everybody that they told him to quit early.
Oh yeah. Buddy is, let's just say, really brutally honest in his concerts. There's a few words that we can't say on the radio that Buddy uses quite liberally on his shows too. But yes, he's a brutally honest guy when he gets to the microphone anymore, and that's fine because he's Buddy Guy and he's in his 70s and he can say what he wants. So
he's Buddy Guy, and he's the baddest man on the planet. So,
there you go.
He can do whatever he wants to.
Right. Well, let's talk about a couple songs from the other disc, the Soul Live disc. Let's talk about. We're going to play "Do You Really Want That Woman," and we're going to play "Said Too Much." Now, "Do You Really Want That Woman" reminds. I know you are from Oakland. It reminds me of that Tower of Power kind of vibe. Is that accurate, or is that acceptable?
Definitely so. Definitely so. I'm a big fan of the Oakland Grease sound. The kind of stuff that Tower of Power was listening to when they were kids,
Right.
Guys like, Roger Collins and Johnny Morissette and cats like that. Actually, I do a Roger Collins tune on the Soul Live record, and I opened a show for Tower of Power, and I remember one of the guys came up, one of the original members came up and says, "Hey, man, I used to play that when I was in high school." So that was pretty cool. But yeah, it's definitely got that sort of that real greasy blues influenced funk kind of thing. Similar to Bobby Rush too.
Right. Yeah.
In a lot of ways. Yeah. And then Said Too Much, man. Well, that's pretty much like your classic Southern soul record, where gospel and country and blues all come together, to make that classic American sound.
Absolutely. Absolutely, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But that does remind me of something that could have been on Stax in 1965 or 66. And I think that's just terrific. That's just terrific. That's a I mean that is a great compliment.
Thank you so much.
Well, let's go ahead and play these tunes. We'll play "Do You Really Want That Woman" and "Said Too Much," both from the Soul Live discs from John Németh. And we'll be back and talk to John a little bit more here in just a few minutes. But right now, here's John Németh on the Burnt Toast Show.